Welcome to this short demonstration on how to protect your web applications by creating virtual patches using the integration between Cenzic's Hailstorm Enterprise Arc application and the Citrix NetScaler Application Firewall. For this demonstration, we're going to tell you a story, a scary story, about how to protect a fictitious bank's website called Crack Me Bank. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to demonstrate just how easy it is to manually hack a web application. Next, we're going to configure Cenzic's Web Vulnerability Scanner, Hailstorm Enterprise Arc, to find a whole host of serious web vulnerabilities within the Crack Me Bank application. Once we've completed the scan, we'll go ahead and create a virtual patch for the Citrix NetScaler Application Firewall. Finally, we'll rerun the ARC scan to demonstrate NetScaler's ability to actively block web vulnerabilities. Okay, let's go ahead and introduce our characters. Mary Lohan is a customer of Crack Me Bank. Mary's going to log into the Crack Me Bank application and just conduct some normal online banking activities. This is Night Mary Lohan, the alter ego of Mary. Night Mary Lohan is Mary Lohan who has gone to the dark side and has become a hacker. Next, we'll meet our Crack IT team at Crack Me Bank. John's responsible for web security, and he uses Hailstorm Enterprise Arc to find security vulnerabilities within the Crack Me Bank web portfolio. John's going to run an automated assessment against the Crack Me Bank website. Finally, we have Craig. Craig works closely with John. He's the administrator for NetScaler, and he will create a virtual patch to immediately begin protecting Crack Me against further attacks. Let's go ahead and start. This is Crack Me Bank's public-facing web application. Actually, this is a test application from Cenzic that's used for training and demonstration purposes. It's full of web vulnerabilities, and some of them are quite nasty. From this application, I can apply for a credit card or a home loan. I can look at my checking account balance, my credit card balances, transfer money, and also trade stocks. Enter Mary Lohan. Mary's a customer of Crack Me Bank. She's going to go ahead and log into the application to check her transaction history for a certain period of time. Mary wants to look at the activity for an entire year. After typing in the information on the account transaction page, she can now see a couple of transactions. She's got a transfer of funds to her credit card as well as a deposit to her account. All is good. Now, Mary has a nasty side to her. In fact, she's been reading up on all of the recent web hacks late at night. She's been doing some research on a particular class of web vulnerability called SQL disclosure. She understands that this can be a really nasty vulnerability. Why not try something right now? Mary Lohan transforms to Night Mary Lohan. What she does now is types in a simple SQL statement in the to-date field on the account transaction page. And look what happens when she clicks the Get Statement button again. This is really bad news for Crack Me Bank. As you can see, Night Mary Lohan has successfully exploited Crack Me Bank and can see all of the banking transactions from someone called Mark Butler. Mark's just an innocent customer of Crack Me. She can see his deposit history, his transfer history, and most damaging, Mark's credit card number. Well, thankfully, Night Mary wakes up and becomes Mary Lohan again. Mary's a good citizen, and after first withdrawing all of her money from Crack Me, she anonymously contacts Crack Me Bank and reports this vulnerability. Introducing John. John is our web security expert and Hailstorm Enterprise Arc user at Crack Me Bank. He gets a call from his boss at 2 a.m. and is told to immediately go to the office and run a scan against Crack Me Bank's application to see if there are any other vulnerabilities. After he finishes running the assessment, he also needs to create a virtual patch for the NetScaler Application Firewall and coordinate this activity with Craig. After John logs into Hailstorm Enterprise Arc, all he needs to do is add the starting URL of the target web application, the username, and the password. For this scan, John is going to leave all the other settings at their default values. To continue, he presses the Save and Schedule Assessment button. At the top of this page, you can see that the application was created successfully. Now, John needs to select an assessment type. An assessment type is essentially a scan template that includes specific types of security vulnerabilities to look for as well as other settings. For this assessment, John's assessment type includes SQL disclosure and some other popular web vulnerabilities such as cross-site scripting. The name of this assessment type is Citrix. Other settings include traversal settings, scheduling options, email notification, and some other advanced options as we're showing you here. John will leave all of these settings at their default value. To begin running the assessment against Crack Me Bank, John clicks on the Schedule Assessment button here. Once the assessment is scheduled, we go to the assessment status page and can see that after the scan is queued, it initializes and then begins running. To monitor the status, we'll click on the Pages Visited link here. From the Pages Visited page, let's expand the page hierarchy and see exactly which page in Crack Me Bank is currently being scanned and see if there are any vulnerabilities that have been discovered. As you can see, the assessment is currently looking for vulnerabilities on the stock trading page. Now we can see we've got some problems. The red bars indicate that we have vulnerabilities on the register page as well as other pages. In this view, the assessment is now completed and John is really getting nervous as the results show a lot of vulnerabilities. He quickly looks at the details and focuses on some of the most severe vulnerabilities, the ones with the highest harm risk score. And look what Hailstorm has found. Here are two SQL disclosure vulnerabilities, one of which is the exact same one that Night Mary Lohan found. From within Hailstorm, John can also drill down into the vulnerability details to learn more about this particular vulnerability. In the summary information, we can see the ejection string of or 1 equals 1. This is exactly what Night Mary Lohan did. Hailstorm's assessment engines use the exact same string to discover this SQL disclosure vulnerability. We also see that Hailstorm has reported that after injecting the SQL statement, it observed 62 more rows of data. So what does that exactly mean? Well, remember what Night Mary Lohan saw after injecting the SQL statement? Hint, a guy named Mark. Well, Hailstorm saw it too. By clicking on the Render Response link here, Hailstorm will show us the exact same results that Night Mary saw. See Mark Butler's credit card number? John's blood pressure is really rising fast. In this example, we're looking at the details for a single vulnerability. The assessment actually found a total of 57 vulnerabilities. For any vulnerability, John can walk through the details to drill down deeper, or he can simply generate a report for his development team with instructions to fix the defects. Let's quickly walk through the other information presented here. We can look at all of the HTTP request and response details to understand the interchange between Crack Me Bank and the web server. The next three sections are appropriate for CrackMe's web development team. How it works gives us details on what SQL disclosure is and how dangerous it can be if a hacker finds and exploits it. The technical description section describes exactly how Hailstorm finds this class of web vulnerability. And arguably the most important information of all is the remediation details. That includes specific instructions on how to fix the underlying software code. This information is what the software developers are going to dig into. The remediation data first provides general coding recommendations, then it covers remediation instructions for the most popular web development languages, including ASP.NET, PHP, and Java, as shown in this case. Finally, John has the ability to type in comments that his developers will see here and in the reports. Before John generates a report of the findings for his development team, he gives his buddy Craig a call to let him know that he'll be creating a virtual patch and will shortly be sending him an XML to import into the NetScaler Application Firewall. Back to the dashboard. The dashboard shows us some summary charts of the assessment that John just ran against CrackMe Bank. As we scroll down and click on the Citrix CrackMe Bank application, we can now see all of the findings. Clicking on the History menu takes us to the Assessment Runs table. From here, John just clicks on the download link to save an XML of all the results. Craig has now received the XML file from John. To put the virtual patch into production, he first needs to import the data into NetScaler. Here, Craig has logged into NetScaler and needs to create an application firewall profile. He will name it Cenzic Firewall Rules. Next, Craig needs to import the Cenzic Application Firewall signatures. After clicking on the External Format tab, he needs to import the XML file that John created and then a special XSLT file to convert the XML to NetScaler's internal format. It's pretty straightforward. Here's the file that John sent to Craig. Here is the XSLT file. This is the file that will transform or convert Hailstorm's XML file into the internal NetScaler rules format. In the Add Signatures object window, we can now see all of the vulnerabilities that Hailstorm discovered, including the two SQL disclosure vulnerabilities. Craig checks the Stats, Log, Block, and Enable checkboxes and names the signature object here. The next step is to bind the Cenzic Application Firewall signatures to the Application Firewall profile previously created. Craig is just about done. The final step is to save the configuration in NetScaler. The virtual patch has been applied by Craig, and the NetScaler Application Firewall is now actively blocking for all the vulnerabilities discovered by the scan that John ran in Hailstorm Enterprise Arc. The CrackMe Bank application has been patched while CrackMe's developers fix the vulnerabilities. And to prove it, what we're going to do now is rerun the same assessment again in Hailstorm and show you that NetScaler is in fact actively blocking for the vulnerabilities. Back to Hailstorm. This time all we're going to do is rerun the assessment. We will show you a couple of things. One, we'll render the NetScaler logging window to show you how it's actively blocking Hailstorm from finding anything new. And secondly, we'll take a look at the Hailstorm pages visited view again to show you that it in fact is not finding anything. After clicking on the assessments link and then the Add to Queue button, the same assessment we previously ran will rerun, this time with the NetScaler Application Firewall in the blocking mode. Once the assessment begins running, we can now see NetScaler's login window rendering various messages that it is actively blocking Hailstorm from finding any vulnerabilities. In addition, we can go back to the Pages Visited page and it all looks good. No red means no vulnerabilities discovered. Think of it this way. Hailstorm is attempting to discover again the vulnerabilities found when it was run against CrackMe Bank without any NetScaler blocking whatsoever. This time, however, NetScaler is configured to block Hailstorm from finding anything because Craig has applied the virtual patch from Hailstorm given to him by John. We hope that this demonstration illustrates how vulnerable a web application can be and even how easy it is to manually hack. With Hailstorm Enterprise Arc and Citrix NetScaler, it's easy to scan for all the vulnerabilities in a web application, then, based on the findings, create a virtual patch to immediately reduce your risk from hacks and data loss. In this case, we've shown you that the virtual patch ensures that CrackMe Bank's application is protected while the development team fixes the underlying software code. We hope you've enjoyed the show. For more details, please contact Cenzic or Citrix.